Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a bit of a chit-chat rambly video where I talk about my feelings with a cup of chamomile tea. So if you want to grab a tea, we can have a bit of a chat. And I want to talk about my toxic relationship with productivity. This is something I very recently realized. And it was a real shock to me as well, as I'm sure it is for you guys watching this if you've kind of been following the channel for any length of time. The way it happened was a few weeks ago, I started feeling like I was in this like real kind of productivity slump. In that, when it came to like filming videos, for a period of about 3 weeks, every time I filmed a video, I just really couldn't be bothered. And I was just like, oh, do I really have to film this video? But because I have like, hammered the mantra into my heart that consistency is like the most important thing in life, and this fear when you're a YouTuber that all YouTubers have, that I can't possibly take a break from YouTube, because if I do, then the algorithm is going to be mean to me and everyone's going to stop following my channel, and then my career is going to go downhill, and then I'm going to have to end up being a doctor again. That thought process was on steroids basically for this period of 3 weeks, and every time I filmed a video, it was like it was like an uphill battle every time. And the way I usually approach this stuff, it's that like, not everything has to be fun 100% of the time. There are times where we do have to push through and do stuff. But generally, the secret to my productivity for the last, 15 years of my life has been that everything I do, I broadly enjoy. And like 90% of it I enjoy. And maybe if I have to push through the final 10%, or usually the first 10% in terms of getting started, that's just the bit that takes a bit of pushing. But in this period of 3 weeks, it was like every aspect of these videos needed that like, uphill push. And it really wasn't a nice feeling to do something that I was actively not enjoying, but doing it because I felt like I had to because of the algorithm, for example. And then on top of not really enjoying filming videos anymore, which is unusual for me, I also had this like, in the mornings, I would often have like a phone call or like an art lesson or a workout scheduled at like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. And I'd sort of wake up bleary-eyed, I'd set my alarm for 8:30 and then I'd kind of sleep again. And then like 3 minutes before the call, I'd wake up, I'd hop on the call, I'd like, pretend to be bright and alert and like awake and stuff. But I had this like seething resentment inside of me that, oh, why do I have to, It's weird in a way because it's not like anyone was forcing me to do this. Like I am completely in control of my own schedule, and I had chosen to book in art lessons and workouts and these phone calls and chats about my book and team meetings, all this stuff in the mornings, thinking, a few weeks prior that, oh, this will be good, this will get me out of bed. And then when it came to that, it was this feeling of like hating my former self for booking in these things in the morning. And again, that's unusual because I've like never really had that feeling before. And then after a few days of this, I'd also do that thing, which apparently there's a word for it. It's called revenge bedtime procrastination, where this thing that we have where you're like, it's past your bedtime, but you don't want to go to bed and you just like continue to procrastinate. And so I was like spending tons of time just scrolling through Instagram and Twitter just for absolutely no reason until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, sometimes even 3 o'clock in the morning. And later my housemate Sheen told me that this is called revenge bedtime procrastination, which is a phenomenon whereby you feel like you don't have control over the rest of your day. And so the only bit of your day that you do have control over, i.e. nighttime, that's when your brain suddenly decides, I'm the boss, I'm not gonna go to bed. And you end up screwing yourself for the next day. And then the final piece of the quartet, as it were, was this like, every day I would have this chronic feeling of dissatisfaction at the end of the day, being like, oh, I didn't do enough today, I woke up too late, or that meeting wasn't productive enough, or I only filmed one video when I should have filmed 3 videos, and I should have shot 8 thumbnails, and I should have done 4 videos for my course, but I ended up only doing 1 thing. And I'm not really a stranger to this feeling of dissatisfaction. Like this is often how I feel, but it's like, it's rare for me to feel it like sort of multiple days in a row. And there was this period of like 2 or 3 weeks where it was just sort of stacking up. I sort of feel like that time passed in a bit of a haze, and that I don't really remember what I actually did in those days. Like I look back on my calendar from like, a few weeks ago in that period of 3 weeks, and I just think, damn, I just don't remember any of this. I just don't really remember it happening. And that is also a little bit of a scary feeling. And so all of this stuff, maybe it's burnout. I've never really experienced burnout before. I don't really know what that's supposed to mean, but maybe that's what that feeling is like, where you feel like you just can't be bothered to do anything, and like the work that you're having to do is like a real struggle. Maybe that's what burnout is. But I was like psychoanalyzing myself earlier, and I came up with a few different reasons as to why this was happening. And then once I discovered the reasons behind why it was happening, I found some solutions to it. So let's talk about those. And the biggest reason is outcome dependence. Like I was fixated to certain like outcomes that were outside of my control. Now this is normally something that I very much rail against. I don't believe in setting output goals. i.e. I don't believe in, like if I make a video, I don't don't believe in the concept of having a kind of view count, like, oh, I really want this video to hit this many views, or I really want to hit this many subscribers, because that's just dumb, because that stuff is outside of my control. In almost every aspect of my life, I set input goals instead. Like, I'm just gonna make 2 videos a week, and because that's entirely within my control and my team's control. But a few weeks ago, I think it was like around about the start of January 2021, we dropped down from 3 videos a week to 2 videos a week. And because of that drop down, I was thinking, oh, okay, cool. So now we're doing fewer videos, therefore all of these videos need to be absolute bangers. And I kind of had that in my mind, that I want every video to be a banger. And on YouTube, when you want every video to be a banger, like there is only so far that particular thought process can go. Because maybe you get a banger and you're lucky, and then maybe you get another banger and you're lucky, and then you get a video, as YouTube Studio shows you, which is like 10 out of 10 on the analytics. 10 out of 10 meaning that in your previous 10 videos, it's the 10th worst performer. And so that's a real feeling of like, oh my God. And basically every YouTuber I've ever spoken to has this feeling when they see a 10 out of 10 on YouTube Studio, being like, oh my God, my life is over. Like, what's the point? My YouTube channel is going down the drain. I think it was because for some reason I set this intention in my head that, hey, I want to make banger videos every time. And that intention made me fixated on the outcome of the video, like how well is the video performing? So then I was becoming like obsessed with the YouTube analytics and thinking, oh my God, this video's only got a thumbnail click-through rate of like 9.8%. We need to get it up to 13%. Let's change the thumbnails. Let's go and shoot a load of thumbnails. And essentially this loop of trying to optimize the numbers. Whereas for the last like 3.5 years on YouTube, I have broadly not really cared about the numbers. Like I couldn't care less once a video comes out how it performs. Generally, I try and operate like that. And so that outcome dependence on the YouTube channel was one thing. And then like alongside, I had a lot of outcome dependence on sort of writing the book that I'm working on. And I actually have this book here by draft number 4, John McPhee, on the writing process, which is helping me learn how to write. But I'll put a video up there that talks about how I feel I've wasted the last 6 months of my life in terms of writing the book. And that stuff was happening around the same time, whereby, you know, just for a bit of background, I've got a book deal and I'm writing a book. There's sort of 2 goals that I could have when writing the book. One of them is I want to write the best book I can, and I want to write something I'm proud of, which is very much an input goal, which is very much up my street and the sort of goal that I normally have. But then there's the external goal, which is that I really want this book to hit the New York Times bestseller list. And it's such a dumb, stupid, arbitrary goal to have because it's completely outside of my control, and it's just stupid. But for some reason, I kind of fixated on that as a goal that I wanted to reach for. And so when I was writing the book, anytime I'd write something, I'd be thinking, oh my God, this is total junk. This is not very good. And I'd sort of be hating myself as I was trying to write, knowing that my work wasn't very good at all. And really overall, that entire problem was just around setting outcome goals rather than input goals. The second cause of this kind of toxic relationship with productivity that I discovered is that I often do this, is like I don't pay enough attention to my emotional state. And what I mean by that is that often if I don't feel like doing something, I will do it anyway and like push through the pain and like, you know, oh, I'm gonna do it anyway. Especially when it comes to making videos. Like, you know, I think we've put out like 350 videos or something on this channel so far. It's been on average 2 point something videos a week since June of 2017. And to get to that level of consistency, while hopefully keeping the quality up, to get to that level of consistency, it's not like every time I sit down to film a video, I'm like, ooh, I'm really looking forward to filming this video. In fact, for the most part, I have to kind of force myself to get started. And then once I get started with filming, it's actually quite fun because I love the sound of my own voice and it's quite fun talking to a camera in a way. But I think there's a sweet spot when it comes to this thing. Like if you're a complete waste man and you just spend your entire life playing World of Warcraft, for example, more on that later. If you're a complete waste man, then there is a level at which you have to tell yourself, I am gonna do something even if I don't feel like it. I'm gonna get off the sofa, get off my chair playing World of Warcraft, and I'm gonna go for a run, even if I don't feel like it. I'm gonna study for my exams, even if I don't feel like it. I'm gonna ignore my emotional state, which wants me to just sit and play World of Warcraft, and I'm going to do the thing that is better for my long-term future. I'm gonna do the hard thing that I know I should do. And that, like, if you're a total waste man, it makes sense that often you should disregard your emotional state because it's actively not serving you. But I think, given that I'm broadly not a waste man, I think I probably swing too far in the opposite direction. And I have a lot of friends who are in sort of traditionally high achievers who are also in this boat, whereby we will often do things whether or not we feel like it because we know it's a good thing to do, but just sort of take that to the point of extremism almost, where even if I've had like, I'm in a bit of a slump and my emotional state is a bit like, oh, I'm not really feeling inspired to write, or I'm not really feeling inspired to make a video, I'll think, you know what? No, you have to be a professional. And actually, we've got a video coming out later this week or next week about overcoming procrastination that is all about like tackling this thing of the resistance that we have. But I think a big part of, at least for me, this kind of verge of burnout, if we want to call it burnout. A big part of this was just ignoring my emotional state and pushing through and doing stuff even though I wasn't feeling like it. And obviously, like, you know, these are like two extremes, and there is some kind of sweet spot which I'm trying to get closer to, which is something along the lines that, yes, there are some occasions in which we do have to force ourselves to do stuff, but it's also okay to take a break. This is a very roundabout way of saying it's okay to take a break sometimes. And if I am feeling like, you know, I don't feel like filming a video this evening, even if there's a sponsor video deadline coming up, I could just email the sponsor and be like, hey guys, wasn't really feeling it, wasn't really inspired. Can we delay this video by a few days? And then normally, like, they're so nice. They'd be like, yeah, sure, take your time, do whatever you want. Basically, it's okay to take a break, but I think I had in my head that I had to be productive at all times, regardless of how I was feeling. And that, I think, contributed to this weird relationship that I have with productivity. And thirdly, I think a big contributor was just the fact that my calendar was way too busy. I think a couple of months ago, I discovered Calendly, this app that lets you like send a link to someone and they can book a time on your calendar. And so anytime people would email me, like I get sort of hundreds of emails each day, and often there are some very interesting opportunities, people running startups or people doing interesting YouTuber type things or creative things or just wanting to have a chat. And there was a period of a few weeks where I was very trigger happy with my Calendly link. I would just be like, if someone would be like, hey, can I pick your brain about X? I'd be like, you know what, this might be fun. Sure, here's a Calendly link. Book a time wherever you want and I'll rock up on a Zoom call. Or if someone would email, be like, hey, I'm running this startup and I'd love to get your thoughts on something and maybe you can help marketing. And be like, sure, book a time on the calendar. And I ended up with like a ridiculously packed calendar where like every half an hour from like 9:30 in the morning until like 6 p.m. some days, I would just have a different Zoom call. And this would be sort of amongst sort of live sessions of my part-time YouTuber Academy, which has been running for the last 6 weeks. It would be alongside coaching sessions and workouts and art lessons. And there were so many days where I was like having lunch on a Zoom call, being like, look, I'm really sorry. I've been in back-to-back Zoom calls for the last 5 hours. I'm gonna stay in back-to-back Zoom calls for the next 6 hours. Do you mind if I eat on the Zoom call? My housemate, she would often be like, why the hell don't you take a break to eat dinner? Like, what's the point of you being on a Zoom call? Is that hour really gonna make a difference? But because I'd been so trigger happy with my Calendly link, I felt bad on canceling on these people and just had a ridiculously packed calendar, which is, again, it feels very first world problem-y, but I think given that like book writing and YouTubing and stuff, most of the stuff I do on the internet is quite a kind of creative art. I've realized that I probably do need a lot of time blocked out to actually make a video and to actually write something. Because in my head I was thinking, well, you know, if the video's 20 minutes long, it should only take half an hour to film because, you know, I'm a professional. I've been doing this for 4 years, and so I can set the camera up, I've eliminated friction in my life, I can film in half an hour. And I just didn't take account of the fact that I am a waste man sometimes when it comes to this stuff. And often it takes me 3 hours to get into the mood to then film a video. And I just didn't really count that. I sort of assumed that I was better at this productivity thing than I actually was. And that meant that I overbooked my calendar. I basically had no margin built into my schedule. Margin being sort of gaps, like empty gaps where you can just sit down and think. Or if something overruns, then you can fit it in the gap. Or if you want to have lunch, you actually have a gap for that. And so all of these different things, I think, were what contributed to this overall feeling of like, you know, oh, I CBA, I can't be bothered to do any of this YouTube stuff, can't be bothered with the book, it's too much effort, oh, the goal is too hard, this is never gonna happen, I'm a terrible writer, I'm a terrible YouTuber, people are gonna unfollow me, blah, blah, blah. But thankfully, in the last couple of weeks, this has improved because having figured out what the problems were, I've now sort of actively started to address those problems. So firstly, I have made it a point to not set output goals. Outcome goals rather. And so even though in the back of my mind, I do really want this book to be a New York Times bestseller, that's anytime I have that thought, I try and squash it away and think instead, no, if I had to choose between that and writing a book I'm proud of and that I like, I would definitely choose writing a book that I'm proud of and that I like. And even for videos like this on YouTube, like you might have noticed past few weeks, I've been doing more of these sit down and have a chat with a cup of tea type videos. I really like doing these videos because I can just sort of speak from the heart. I can talk about my feelings. It feels like the camera is in a way a sort of therapist. And it's always nice reading the comments. And I actually prefer doing these sorts of sit down chatty videos than a very well produced, here are the 18 ways to be productive type video, which takes a lot of actual effort to put together and a lot of like mental effort to, you know, bring myself to sit down and make, which is why partly I've been doing more of these videos. And what I'm telling myself is, I actually don't really care how these perform. If people want to watch them, they'll watch them. If they don't, they don't. People will find something to do with their time regardless. I don't need to be fixated on what that number is telling me on YouTube Studio, on the YouTube analytics. Secondly, I now have a much emptier calendar, which is great. I have modified my Calendly links, and I have now, like my assistant Elizabeth, who has her own YouTube channel, link below. Elizabeth keeps on telling me like, why the hell are you saying yes to so many people? Because I feel like I'm a chronic nice guy in that if someone emails me or messages me, or especially if like a friend intros me to someone else who they know and they ask for a meeting, I often just say yes to it. And it was this thing of saying yes to too many things and booking them in the calendar way too often that meant the calendar was overloaded. So now I've changed my Calendly link. So like no one is allowed to book meetings with me before 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which gives me the whole morning basically free to do creative stuff and then an hour for lunch. And then I can have calls from like 2 till like 6 p.m., but I'm only allowed to have like 2 or 3 calls each day. And so it's like a system solution to a people problem. My people problem is that I'm too keen to say yes to things, but now the link itself does not let me overbook myself. And so if you've been emailing me in the last couple of weeks and you haven't had a response or haven't, got a meeting arranged with me, apologies, but it had to be done. I was just trying to say yes to too many things. It's weird, because like when you start off doing stuff on the internet, you think like anytime you get a comment, anytime you get an email, you're like, oh my God, someone's like watching my stuff. Someone wants to talk to me. Hell yes, I'll give you like an hour of my time. But then as you become more famous, then you start getting way too much inbound, and there are literally not enough hours in the day to actually be able to say yes to all the things you want to say yes to. And even if there were, it wouldn't make sense to use up kind of 18 hours of my working day to just have meetings with people. Because the reason people follow me in the first place is because I make the time to make videos. And without that like empty blocks of time in my calendar, I don't think I would be serving my long-term interests or overall the long-term interests of my audience, which feels a bit grandiose, but oh well. Thirdly, I have found that I'm trying to become a bit more aware of what my emotional state is at any given moment. I've spoken to a few friends who are sort of like me, i.e. weird productivity nerds, and they've said that getting a therapist has really, really helped, because even though they don't have mental health issues per se, it's still helpful to be able to speak to someone that just encourages you and in a way forces you to actually address what your emotional state is around stuff. And so I'm trying to get more okay with asking myself, how do I feel right now? And therefore, do I really want to do this thing that I know I should do, or should I just kind of give in to my feelings, but not viewing that as a bad thing? So still a work in progress. I wasn't really feeling like filming this video right now, but my housemate talked me into doing it, and I'm kind of glad I'm doing it now, because it's like most of these things, like most of the friction, most of the activation energy is just in getting started. And then once you get started, it's actually quite fun. Fourthly, I've actually resumed playing World of Warcraft. I'm actually doing a 30-day challenge where I play video games for 30 days. So I won't say too much about that, but I've been streaming basically every day on Twitch. If you want to follow me, twitch.tv/AliAbdaal. That's been fun. And finally, the thing that I've realized that I really should get better at doing is that basically at the end of the day, I can just choose to be satisfied with what I've done. There was a great blog post that I read. My friend Neil Nanda, who featured on our podcast once, I'll put a link to the video below. Yeah, he's got a great blog post that talks about this. Just that as productivity type people, like we always think, you wake up in the morning thinking, oh, I didn't get enough sleep. And then, you get back from work or from school or whatever and think, oh, I didn't perform well enough at work. And then you do your side hustle. You're like, oh, I could have been more productive in the side hustle. If you have a family, you're like, oh, damn, I wasn't present enough with my kids or my housemate and all that kind of crap. And then at the end of the day, you go to bed thinking, oh my God, I've gone to bed too late and I'm gonna get not enough sleep, and then the whole cycle is gonna continue. And a real big part of it is just in choosing to be satisfied with the thing. So what I've realized I can do is, at the end of the day, I could just think to myself, you know what? Today's been a good day of work. I could think that, or I could beat myself up. I could think, oh my God, I've been so unproductive today. What is life? I'm such a waste man. But like either way, it doesn't change the fact that I've done a certain amount of work. I filmed one video, I shot a thumbnail, I did a thing for my YouTuber Academy. The story I tell myself about it after the fact does not change the actual reality. All it does is make me feel bad about myself when I tell myself I'm a waste man and it's 10 p.m. but I haven't done enough work for the day, therefore I should be doing something productive rather than, I don't know, playing World of Warcraft or something. So what I'm trying to do is trying to tell myself that it's okay to choose to be satisfied with what I've done at the end of the day, because ultimately it doesn't really change anything. All it does is make me feel better about my life. And then I can play World of Warcraft while streaming on Twitch and do it guilt-free, rather than hating myself every step of the way as I level up my protection paladin. And so that is my toxic relationship with productivity. It's still a work in progress. It's been a while since I've been in a relationship with anyone or anything, so it's kind of novel in a way, but it's not the sort of relationship with productivity that I would like. And I'm, she and I are working together to improve things. If you got to this point in the video, I'd love for you to leave a clover emoji in the comments. I'm always very curious to see how many people reach to the end of this video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, you definitely should. And if you enjoyed this sort of video, we'll put a little playlist over here with more chit chat, rambly type videos over a cup of tea if you're into that sort of thing. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you guys for actually watching these videos. Like it's genuinely nice having like people who have my back and as like a therapist on camera. So thanks for that. If you have any tips on how to solve this problem, let me know. But otherwise, click the links over there and we'll see you in the next video. Good night.